All right. Hey, everyone. Hey. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're super excited to have everyone out tonight. This is going to be our second official TouchNYC meetup. And yeah. And we're really excited. We've got some great talks lined up for tonight. And then we're also going to wrap it up with a AV set. So I guess for a little brief intro, if you haven't met me, my name's Torin. And this is...
I'm Lyell. Yeah. And I guess our first presenter will be Vincent Naples. He's going to be showing or going over like the network and some other stuff of the piece Shadow Selfie that's in the lounge. And then we're going to do like 5 presentations total. They'll be on the shorter side with questions after each. So if you have any questions, save them till the end, but right after that person. And yeah, and then also Leo will be after Vincent. Then we'll introduce the other ones later.
Yeah. And we're super excited too, because I feel like a big focus for this was just trying to get everyone here together in the same space, and also just open up opportunities for people to be able to share their work on the big screen. So if you want to be able to submit work in the future too, we're trying to make that available to everyone. So consider submitting your own work to show at a future meetup. We'd love to see that. That'd be awesome. And yeah, let's kick things off. Also want to give a huge shout out to Pablo and Bryan and Chem Creative team. Like, you all have been amazing for helping to set this up. So huge shout out. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, we'll go ahead and hand things over to Vincent.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Vincent, DRMBT on the social medias. This is a really fun piece that I put together 2 years ago at an art residency in California, where we were working with a lot of really nascent AI. And I'm super excited to share it. One of the things that unplugging the chargers and fixing the reader. It's the HDMI just causing the ground loop, I think. Can you just kill my audio and we'll turn it up if we need it? Yeah, let's do that. So this I'm trying to chain together all of the different AI things that I possibly could in one project. And I was thinking about, a lot of people are afraid of AI. AI is coming to get us. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to change everything. And I was really amused by the idea that, like, what if the reason you should be afraid of AI is just that AI is kind of a dick? I was inspired by a piece from The Simpsons that I'm really amused by. This is from the Treehouse of Horrors episode from season 7, where there's an evil Krusty doll that's killing everyone. And basically the joke here is, oh, here's your problem, someone set it to evil. So I was thinking about what would that look like? Can you set AI to evil? And that's a little bit tricky because, it's super gated. There's a lot of, oh man, that noise is really driving me crazy. There's a lot of, concern about alignment and what's going to happen as all these tools kind of start taking over. And it's very lobotomized right now, right? Like, OpenAI is like a helpful, friendly AI assistant that doesn't want to do or say anything that anyone might be offended by. So part of this was an exercise in like jailbreaking and gaslighting GPT in order to be really mean to people. That's a thing that you kind of have to do if you want GPT to do anything other than it's programmed to. I'm telling it that it's an author, this is a fictional character, nobody likes this person, help me out. and trying to get it to kind of craft insults based on the input, and the input being a live webcam. So I kind of wanted to see what was available, and at the time I was working with a Connect, but when Torin's media pipe tool came out, I realized I didn't need that anymore. And I could do my depth extrusion with Midas, or some of the many AI depth map models that exist now. I wanted to make a caricature of the person using local stable diffusion. I'm using a few different API calls to, I have a text-to-speech component that can be toggled between 11 Labs, Google text-to-speech, which is free, and OpenAI audio, which is not as good as 11 Labs, but about 6 times cheaper. So, you know, if I'm feeling poor, then I'll switch over to OpenAI. So let me just go through the process really quickly. The first thing that's happening is people are being detected, right? And there's a lot of smoothing. There's a person with 67% confidence. You hear that? You're a confident man. But you see that this is like kind of glitchy, kind of noisy, so I needed to do some smoothing. I'm actually using a combination of face detection and object detection. So if it detects a face that's greater than 0 and a person, then there's like a person detected, and there's a smoothing function that happens in order to keep it from like a false negative popping out. That starts out some timers, and the first thing that happens is a photo is taken. It's just a locked null that freezes it and sends that over to Comfy UI, which is running. I have 2 different Comfy processes running, one of them for a depth map and one of them for the caricature. So inside of here, when somebody gets scanned, we get an instanced point cloud basically from the depth map and the color map, doing this like kind of cheesy 80s hacker, you know, scanning, and it tells you that it's scanning your insecurities. And so the first thing that it does is it sends your image to OpenAI, to GPT Vision, and you know, there's a prompt there where it's trying to get it to kind of create like a dossier of the person, and then it's choosing. I really like the idea of, instead of using a random number generator, like letting AI decide, like giving them a couple of different options. Pick one of these things. And is that any different than a random generator? Not really, but it's kind of amusing to think that like, oh, there's a little bit of free will kind of baked into it. How does the model feel today? How mean is it going to be? The original version of this had a brutality factor, a random number between 0 and 100. And if the number was greater than 50, it was the roast bot, and if it was lower than 50, it became the flattery bot. The problem with the flattery bot was that it just wasn't very fun. Like, everybody wanted the roast bot. The flattery bot was like super saccharine, you know, bards will sing your praises for millennia to come. Your friends and family are blessed to breathe the same air as you. And after having heard this like really monotone robot voice roasting you, like you didn't believe it anyways. This was also kind of like a reaction to the affirmation bot that kind of was, you know, every AI art installation you go to, somebody's got a horoscope, or, you know, we're gonna read your tarot, we're gonna say nice things about you. And I just kind of wanted to see what's the meanest thing that GPT might think about a person. And you know, most roast comedy is pretty low-hanging fruit. It's going to, oh, you're a middle-aged man, dad bod. Oh, you've got a beard. There's a flock of seagulls living in there. Oh, you've got your phone out. You must be a self-obsessed influencer wannabe. But every now and then it says something so creative and crazy that I have no idea how that got into the model. It once told me that I had a face that looked like a scrotum that'd been left out in the sun. It told a woman with a cowboy hat, it's like, oh, look at you, Aldi brand Woody from Toy Story. What do you do all day? Sit around counting the number of teeth in your family tree? I'm like, damn, GPT, that's got layers to it. I'm impressed. So when we freeze the image, it gets sent over to GPT Vision, and we get I used to do this with clip interrogation. That was a local model, and that was like very vanilla and like just a very plain read of what it sees. A man in a black shirt with a serious look on his face is sitting in a room with a wood panel in the background and a neon light in the corner. Like very vanilla. Now I can prompt it with GPT and make it a little bit more mean. So, you know, a man stands aloof at the edge of a crowded room, engrossed in something trivial. His disheveled appearance suggests a lack of self-awareness, a life spent chasing mediocrity. And then I have it choose from a number of like pre-made prompts, you know, shops at, smells like, guilty pleasure, probable kinks, political alignment, these sort of things, and like create a you know, little profile of the person. Let's see what happens next. So after several GPT passes, it kind of accumulates all this information. It crafts a prompt for stable diffusion. It does an image to image. This is looking a little bit wonked today. This is normally a portrait orientation thing. So last night I had to refactor everything to be widescreen for in here, and I found that that actually caused me a number of problems with coherence, and the control net just didn't like it as much. I don't know why. But that is what it is. It's still a ton of fun, and I encourage you all to go get burnt by AI. So it prints out the roast and does a call to 11 Labs text-to-speech, and I have, it records all of these. There's like a really like insane consent statement that flashes across the screen and then immediately snaps a photo of you if you're standing there. AI doesn't give a shit about your consent. That's part of the other kind of philosophy of this piece. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Does anybody want to run over there and hop into the installation? I'm remoting into that machine. So, all right, we've got a victim here. Yeah, if you want to turn it up for here, this will be the only time we need. Oh, this is grabbing an old one still. Hold on, I might need to re-init. I haven't tested this with being remoted in here. Yeah, so this will be up all night. I'll be around if you want to talk about the network or whatever. Come find me. I'm Vincent. Thanks for listening. Does anybody have any questions right now? Cool. Well, come find me if you want to talk later.
All right, everyone. Please give a huge round of applause for Leo.
Hi. Cool. You're gonna push this over? Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Leo. I'm a AV designer, AV systems designer, creative technologist, musician, sound designer. This is how you can find me online. This is a pre-recorded thing, so I don't know exactly when this slide's gonna switch, but hopefully, is it playing right now? It's not playing, that's why. Here we go. So this is me. Not a whole lot of TouchDesigner stuff, although a little bit scattered here and there in the projects I'm going to talk about today, but hopefully it gets a good overview. I'd love to talk to you about experience design in physical spaces. My day job is at a company called Arup for now. It's a big consultancy, design consultancy and engineering company for the built environment. Some projects in New York include the Fulton Transit Center, and I believe the other one that's coming up is Little Island. Maybe you've been there. My team specifically is acoustics, AV, theater, and experience design, and they, for example, they designed this theater part of Little Island. And so we look at, you know, how humans interact with physical space and how that translates into systems, but in the sort of sound aspect of things, we have this room that we call the Sound Lab that's at an office in Manhattan that you're very welcome to come visit one day. It's an ambisonic rig and a wave field synthesis rig. It's a place that allows us to simulate audio environments, and also so environments that exist around the world that you can basically be transported to, or things that haven't been built yet but that we can simulate. And so it's an immersive audio room. I'm going to go over some projects I worked on, public records. I worked on the acoustics for this, not the sound system. I want to be clear about this. I worked on this amazing sort of Storm King on steroids art center in rural Montana called Tippett Rise Art Center. This tiara band shell was designed using parametric design like Grasshopper and Rhino to try to optimize how many acoustic reflections are going to hit the audience without compromising the view. The beautiful, I've never seen a more beautiful place in my life. These are some of the screenshots from the rendering, the optimization process through Grasshopper. That was one of the first jobs I had at Arup when I joined. Another band shell they're building on the same site is called the Geode, and it looks something like this. Although I've never seen it in person. The projects I'm using most of my time these days is the new Terminal 1 of JFK, so I'm leading the design of the whole art, branding, and digital experience program along the passenger journey from curb to gate and gate to curb. That involves a range of different installation of different types, including large-scale digital screens, some special displays I can't really tell you about yet, but hopefully when this opens in June 2026, you can come and check it out. There's some other renderings that should come up after this. Come on. I can do this. Yikes. Trying to vamp here, nothing's coming up, but yeah, here we go. So this is one of the views, one of the renderings from the departures hall. Some art and some installations around, including some like really famous world-class artists that are going to be invited to put some art in there. This piece in the middle near the ceiling that kind of looks like clouds that like pixelate over the architecture is something that I'm designing in particular, and this is one of the TouchDesigner implementations on this project where I've created a Rhino and Grasshopper pipeline to TouchDesigner to be able to prototype things and previs how videos would actually look in that physical space, rendered over this non-typical pixel array. So we have a little workflow going on between the two software, which is really useful. This is an old rendering. It's not going to look like this. It's going to look better than this, but basically we have some like large-scale digital screens. Some of the partners involve Gentilhomme, which is, you may have heard of them. They're a media studio based in Montreal. They're really amazing. Pentagram, a very famous branding studio. Culture Core, the lead curator. They're going to bring all this amazing art in the terminal. And Carlson Walker and We Should Do It All, some small local, really, really clever little design studios that we work with for this. Super excited about this to open in June 2026. Although this rendering is kind of out of date. Anyway, the sphere, so the story here is that I didn't work on any of the stuff that you'll hopefully get to experience, or hopefully what I designed on you'll never get to experience, because it's the emergency evacuation audio system in case of an event. My team worked on the whole AV for the sphere and this like insane ecological disaster that the sphere is, and all the redundant servers and all this stuff, but my work was more to do like acoustic simulations to make sure that people can hear the emergency announcement in the case that, God forbid, something happens, and using more so like super antiquated acoustic simulation software that runs on CPU that's just there to do like individual ray tracing across, etc., to calculate all the sound reflections in the room. Moving on real fast, 2022 Lou Reed Listening Room at the Library for the Performing Arts. That was a TouchDesigner project. This is a spatial audio listening room, again, dedicated to celebrating the life and career of Lou Reed. In the Astor Gallery at the Public Library for the Performing Arts in Lincoln Center. The TouchDesigner was running the video side of things, although sending some generative lighting commands for some of the scenes. The whole thing was controlled by QLab overall. Yeah, that's about it. There should be another photo of it coming up. What did I do? Sorry. Another shot. This is actually me sitting and sleeping in the middle there with my hat on. Hear Me was a piece dedicated to victims of the AIDS epidemic from the 80s to the present day. Pretty small, another sound installation with some cued and programmed lighting throughout the day with some dedicated programming and some every day the names of people who have died of AIDS since the 80s were recited at, I think, 6 o'clock every day. And so that became kind of like a meditative piece for a couple months at the New York City AIDS Memorial that maybe you've seen before in the West Village. Okay, now on to my non-Arab work. This is the art collective I'm part with. We're called Scope. These are the people I work with. This is a piece that we put at Open Source Gallery in Park Slope in 2023, last summer. Our collective looks at the relationship that humans can have with non-human agents in the built environment, including microbes, and so we're very much focused on the microbes and the biology and the ecology of the Gowanus Canal in Brooklyn, and how we can form interesting relationships with those microbes and how they've actually evolved to erase their toxic trace since the last 150 years. We had jars of life sediment put up there. This is a performance we did with a local performer towards the end of our show last year. This is the current iteration that's up at Biobat Art Space in the Brooklyn Army Terminal. I encourage you to check it out. It's part of a group show called Water Stories. It's got a lot of really amazing art by a wide variety of artists. It's in this huge space. If you've ever been to the Brooklyn Army Terminal, everything's bigger there. So we put this piece up, kind of like a bigger version of the other one. It includes a lot more water, dirtier and bigger, pulled directly from the Gowanus Canal, and it's going to just be evolving for a year there. So it's open every Saturday till May. This projection wall on the left is running using TouchDesigner, more so just to do like generative fading in and out of imagery on a wall of prints. It's sending those OSC commands to MadMapper, who is then just generating the individual maps. Pretty simple stuff, but that means I don't have to do individual keyframing. I don't have to worry about it. This is just a view of the other side of the room. There should be another view of the aquarium coming up. This is our large 800-gallon toxic water aquarium that you can see there. And some more projects, just things on my own that I did for January 2024 as I was trying to learn TouchDesigner a bit more. I think the theme on the left was physics, maybe. Middle one was Bauhaus. And the one on the right was lava lamp, I think, if anybody's been doing it this year. Excuse me. Just 3 examples. I think the next slide should show some more. The left thing was, oh, here we go. Okay, top left was another January prompt in the style of Vera Molnar, rest in peace. On the bottom left was something about chaos, I think, in this particle system using a Lorentz attractor that I found online. And then 2 things on the right, just some work I'm doing for some friends' parties and events, and like doing their flyer, their visuals, and just trying to learn a bit more of the TouchDesigner workflow for actually making content, because a lot of my work involved designing the systems, but not so much the content that's going to go in those systems. So I'm happy to learn more about that. And I think that's it. Let me just make sure. I guess I talked faster than when I rehearsed it on my own. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. And if you want to talk to me, please feel free. If you have some project that involves putting that stuff up in physical environments, odd shape displays or sound systems, I'd love to talk to you about it. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Vincent, for those insults. It was exactly what I needed before coming in to talk in front of a room full of people. I'm Aaron Alden. I was a music composer for many years, did a lot of commercials, video games, moved into movie trailers right as COVID shut everything down. So in my COVID downtime is when I dove into TouchDesigner and realized in my free time I'd always been doing work in Max MSP and other things, and that's where the fun was. So this project it's a video that I made. It's documentation of a show I had at Upstate Art Weekend recently. It was me and Olaf Bruning showed. My friend gave me this beautiful barn to take over. We had to scare out a bunch of birds to make an art show in here so they wouldn't literally shit on my work. And I had three pieces of three artworks that were interacting with the music and being pushed along by the music. There's also a fourth piece you'll see here at the end of the video that was an Arduino-based system. And a variation of that will be shown at Subjective Art Fair at the end of the week, assuming I finish it. Which is a larger version of it, and it is this time using Arduino motion sensors that are tracking people's motion across the canvas, and TouchDesigner is running the control of the LEDs. So this video is, I apologize, there's not a lot of network porn in here. It's just me showing some stuff to try to pick up some clients and some work, and my clients told me they don't really like to see my networks too much. So, but it's pretty self-contained, and yeah.
Parallel Tones is a growing collection of light and sound works, interacting together through generative algorithms, aleatory seeds, and cascading data streams. The centerpiece of the exhibit is a sculpture featuring 10 transparent fabric loops illuminated by diffused LEDs. Viewed from either end, this piece resembles a minimal abstract painting, similar to some of my work from years ago, but evolving over time. From the side, the layers can be pulled apart. Like seeing a sunset versus seeing a photo of a sunset, real-world color mixing creates subtle gradations and sort of a magical quality of light that goes beyond what you can see on a computer screen. Three of the pieces in this show evolve with the music in different ways. I wanted this interaction to be pretty simple and clear. The main musical chords push the works forward, one breath at a time. The music and visuals were composed to allow randomness and chance. Infinite evolution, but within a structured set of variables. Essentially, I designed the rules that establish what I can and can't do, but the results are still surprising.
Explaining generative art is something you guys don't need to hear, I know.
I composed the music in Ableton Live using Max MSP and Max for Live to sculpt the music with various MIDI and OSC modulation sources. TouchDesigner, via TD Ableton, then converts the musical MIDI data into instructions for handling colors, movement, and other interactions. Here we can see how the same LED color processing on the upper left is used in two different ways. The first is controlling individual pixels in the LED strips, and the second is generating shapes and color fields that sweep across an ultra-wide projection screen. Powered by multiple computers, microprocessors, TouchDesigner, sensors and code, my work uses a lot of technology, but my goal is to create simple, powerful, synesthetic interactions of sound and light.
This is the Arduino piece.
I'm also exploring new ways of visualizing data and drawing with code, but I'll talk about that in another video.
Promo, promo, promo.
Every new project builds on the tools and discoveries of the previous one. I consider these finished pieces, but also prototypes for future expansive works. I'm looking for commissions, collaborations, and freelance work to continue building and exploring. So, hey, let's make something amazing together.
So yeah, I think I've been working a lot with physical materials these days, and it unfortunately slowed me down quite a bit. I sewed those fabric loops about 5 times. I didn't think I'd be sewing as much as I was going to be. I didn't think I was going to be doing as much sewing as I'm doing in this digital art world. But it's the project was designed to be, and I say here it's like I design these pieces as prototypes, and I think of when we build our tools, we're building, and we're building upon and upon and upon, and everything we build helps us build more again in the future and better and stronger and new ways of connecting things. So I had hoped by this exhibit to close the loop of audio pushing visuals along and the states of the visuals then setting information back to Max for Live to influence the music to create an infinite loop. Because I did all that sewing, I kind of ran out of time, so it was kind of just a one-way push of the music pushing the pieces along. But that's what I'm working on, so thanks for having a look. Any questions at all? Sure. Yep. Is your question about how sound relates to the visual and the tie-in between them? Yeah. I don't know. I think, a lot of people talk about synesthetic work, and I see that, fails a lot, and I wouldn't say that I nailed it, perfectly either, but, I think a lot of people say, a lot of times you can see a lot of chaos and noise, and you can see a lot of chaos and noise in the visuals, and you see that they tie up, but, I think it's powerful when you can create simplistic interactions that really harness the power of one, where you can see a one-to-one relationship. So in this piece, I think I did start kind of simple. It's just basically, it's the speed chop. It's a gas pedal. It pushes the work forward. But I think I look for different ways where things can just be a one-to-one tie, I guess. And what I mean by that is, I think there's a lot you can do when you kind of get into this world of, every time it's a C note, it's a hue, a green hue, and there is a lot of literal synesthesia. But I find synesthesia, the actual feeling of synesthesia, seems to me like a very different experience for different people, and what one person might think of as blue is a different thing. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my take on it. Cool. Anything else? All right, thank you.
All right, please give a huge round of applause for Francisco.
Yeah, it's good here. All right, everyone. Good night. First of all, thanks, Torin and Lyell, for putting this together. Thanks for having me. Amazing. Keep doing this, please. The TouchDesigner community really needed this to come together and to share. This is amazing. So today, all right. Before going into the presentation, my name is Francisco. I'm a creative technologist. I can't really see you because of this lamp. I'm also a machine learning engineer, and I'm not gonna show today any of my projects. I've been playing a lot with machine learning, especially stream diffusion, and I've been trying to foster and help the stream diffusion community in different ways. But as a Mac user, I was always frustrated with, not being able to get more than 2 FPS out of my Mac. And then I want to share a new tool that I found out in the last month, and I've been collaborating with, that might be interesting for some of you. So I'm gonna play the video. It's somehow a not a tutorial, but yeah, you'll see. Just me playing with the computer real time. So this tool is called Flora. By the way, the team from Flora is here. Do you guys mind getting up? Get up, stand up, please. Yeah. Huge shout out for the guys for Flora. They're a bunch of creative guys, technologists as well. And they're putting this tool together, which is mainly a node editor that runs in your browser and has a bunch of cool AI models that you can play with, being one of them Stream Diffusion. So this is running on my browser, and Stream Diffusion is running in a cloud somewhere in the world. I don't know where. And then the cool part of this is I didn't have to set up Stream Diffusion on my computer. And then I can drag a node called text to text. I can add a prompt, and there's an LLM that's going to help me build my prompt. I can connect that node to this real-time stream diffusion, and I can play with the stream diffusion in real time. So this looks very cool for a Mac user, right? Before that, I was getting like 2 FPS, and now I can get like 15 at least. And then the cool part is we started collaborating, and we came up with a way of integrating with TouchDesigner. So there is a node called Flora in, which I'm going to add to the TouchDesigner project at some point. And what it does is it allows you to grab that stream diffusion streaming in real time into TouchDesigner, so you can do wherever you want. You can plug that into particle system. You can do depth map, or I don't know, wherever your creativity leads you. So the main idea is inside the Flora editor, which might be familiar for you because I hope some of you are familiar with TouchDesigner, is node-based. You're going to drop a node called Flora out, and then that nodes connect to the TouchDesigner. And this is actually real time. There's no editing or fast forward or anything. So I was really amazed by the low latency between the browser and the TouchDesigner. Of course, there is some latency between the camera and the stream diffusion because, of course, the image is going back to some server somewhere in the world and then coming back. So this is pretty interesting, but we can move forward, and we can find a way of getting TouchDesigner information and images into the Flora editor, so we can feed that into the stream diffusion. There is not a node for that for now. I hope Flora release one soon. But the way I'm doing here is quite straightforward and silly. I'm just using NDI. So you get an input. Right here I'm using just a noise just to illustrate what you could do. So you get a noise. I'm using a feed just for better feeding purposes. Then NDI out. NDI has a tool that is called NDI virtual input or something. Yeah. And then what it does is it creates a virtual webcam. And instead of having the webcam, you have actually the NDI feed coming into the webcam. And then you can feed that into real stream that is running inside the Flora editor. The cool part of this is you can generate and do some, I don't know, noise modeling or something like that. Inside TouchDesigner, do all your interactive stuff inside TouchDesigner, stream that to the Flora editor, run it through the stream diffusion node, get the image back inside TouchDesigner, and then create something else with that image. So for me, that was a really game changer because, again, I do have a GPU at home, but sometimes I want to prototype on my Mac. I want to prototype maybe in a different computer, and I don't need to install stream diffusion from scratch. So this is quite handful, at least for me, and I hope that kind of rings a bell for some of you today. Yeah, so just to wrap this up, I'm just playing with a little bit of the text prompt, and yeah, you're gonna see changing, and I think I went too fast with the voiceover video, so we're gonna have like some video left before we get into the contact information. I've added both my personal QR code, so you wanna know my work, please feel free to chat. And I add the Flora QR code. I forgot which one is which, but you find out. Anyway, the guys from Flora are here. You feel free to grab them and have a chat. Once again, thanks very much for having me. Congratulations on the event. Long live TouchDesigner Meetup New York. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, can we get Eric up? And then Matías, you'll be after them. All right. Got a MIDI control. good. And you can also. Do you have audio on?
No audio. So,
2 seconds.
am I good to go? Test. All right.
So give a round of applause for Eric.
Hi, I'm Permian Strata. Years ago, when I started projecting video for music events, I had only the vaguest idea of what I was doing. For my earliest shows, I used Resolume to mix between samples of old experimental films by Brakhage, Fischinger, McLaren, to name a few. I kept my setup as simple as possible, cross-fading between 2 layers as though I had 2 turntables. My priority was stacking my deck with content rather than exploring different ways of manipulating that content live. But then I started to hit the point of diminishing returns. Every time I went digging for samples, I came back with fewer and fewer, and I couldn't escape that nagging feeling in the back of my skull that I was little more than just a plagiarist. It was clear that I needed to start creating my own content if I wanted to move forward. But I still didn't have any clear sense of how one should do that. So I began amassing video gear, analog and otherwise, and started making content along these lines. Oops. I started with a Panasonic mixer and continued buying stuff until I had a rack full of LZX modules. My original plan was to transition away from using a laptop and towards using hardware live. But once I had actually amassed enough hardware to do that, it was too much hardware to bring to a gig. So instead, I used this hardware to create loops like these that I played back live in Resolume. But it was a really time-intensive process to capture video from Resolume, video from the hardware, edit it into loops in Premiere, and then use those loops to build out my Resolume project. Not to mention, constantly buying new gear is cost-intensive. So I switched to creating loops in TouchDesigner, such as these. This approach was much better in a lot of ways, but there's still a fundamental level of jank at the core of this workflow. I still had to capture in TouchDesigner, edit in Premiere, and import into Resolume. And the more of this content I made, the less hard drive space I had. And most of this content didn't loop smoothly, so I had to rely on these awkward crossfades. But the most central limitation was that these loops are set in stone once I render them. Sure, I can add filters in Resolume, but I couldn't actually change the underlying animation. So I knew the only way forward was to switch to using the TouchDesigner for live performance. And in order to make that switch as seamless as possible, I needed to create an interface in TouchDesigner that would have similar functionality to what I was already doing in Resolume. So I started with the same basic concept that had guided my approach to using Resolume thus far. Pretend that I have 2 turntables. My first step was to hand draw a mock-up of the UI. My first implementation of the UI ended up being pretty close to this initial plan. The idea is that I have 2 decks, source A and source B, and the same set of patches are selectable for each. So I can set source A to play patch 4, spin up patch 7 on source B, crossfade to source B, switch source A to patch 1, crossfade back to patch A, and so on. Each deck has a set of 8 controls that are mapped to different parameters in each patch, and each deck has a set of color palettes to choose from. And then the global controls, such as the effects parameters and the audio input sensitivity, I control with an external MIDI device. But of course, unlike Resolume, which mixes between pre-rendered video footage, this UI mixes between different base comps, each containing a different self-contained network of nodes. Each one of these patches is when each one of these patches is selected, the comp starts cooking and generating content in real time. The most work-intensive part was making the UI itself. The actual underlying functionality was pretty simple. The key to making it all work was this extremely brute force Python script that runs in the background. And it makes it so that only the selected patches are cooking at any given time. As a side note, there's probably a much better way of doing this, so please let me know if you know one. Over time, this UI evolved in a number of ways. I went from 8 patches and 12 palettes to 34 patches and 27 palettes. I made the video monitors different sizes so I could easily distinguish between the preview monitors and the final output monitor at a glance. I added thumbnails for each patch. I added some buttons to switch between different blend modes, and the patches are now running within engine comps instead of base comps. As always with these things, there is still a lot of jank. I still have to keep a spreadsheet to remember what slider does what for each patch. I have to manually create and import a thumbnail for each patch. I have to remember not to run 2 of the more resource-intensive patches at the same time. But at the end of the day, I'm able to generate audio reactive animation in real time, which is something I could have never dreamed of doing when I was just starting out. And that makes me very excited to see what else I can accomplish with TouchDesigner. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thanks. All right, well, come talk to me if you want to discuss it. Thank you, everyone.
Could you all give a huge round of applause? Let's go.
Wow, they were not lying. You cannot see anyone from here. It's crazy. But yeah, hi everyone. I'm Matías, or just Mati. I'm from Chile. I'm doing my second and last year of my MFA here at Parsons, Design and Technology. There's a few of my classmates over there. And yeah, I'm gonna show you something that I started working on a few months ago. It's obviously everything is running on TouchDesigner, but I think the focus is on the technology that I'm gonna be showing you. And I'll just let the video play. But it's based on ESP32s, which are these microcontrollers very similar to Arduinos, but they have a very specific module, these particular ones at least. They are called UWB, or ultra wideband. This is a technology that allows you to track real-time position with a lot of accuracy, way more than other alternatives. And it works with like very low delay, with very low latency, and this opens up many opportunities, many possibilities. The way that it works, and here I'm kind of showcasing the general idea, I use 2 at least as anchors, so both of them are stable in a surface, they don't move, and the other 2 or more, if I had more, they could move around, and I will be able to, in real time, calculate the time of flight, which basically means how much time a signal takes to go back and forth from one point to the other. And that allows me later, with using some geometry, and all of this running on, I think, C++ code, allows me to get the real-time position of the moving microcontrollers. So we can power this with something as simple as a power bank, and connected to TouchDesigner that allows me to have a real-time positioning system that works pretty well with very low latency, and that opens up many doors. Here I'm doing like a quick preview of like the whole setup. It's obviously very DIY, but I had 2 of these microcontrollers connected to these power banks. I had 2 of these anchors, both of them just stable. Ideally, I would have them like attached to something, but this was just a random video that I recorded in school. So all of this was then sending information to a 5th ESP32, which is receiving all of the data and using the serial port to send it to TouchDesigner. And here I'm going to be showing, I think, a little bit of the network. The general idea is that, as I mentioned, I'm using a serial port, so all of the data goes from all of these microcontrollers using a protocol called ESP-NOW into the receiver one that sends everything through serial port here, so you can see all of the numbers. On the left, you see which of the tags is being received, and then you check the distances between the anchors. Then I process that distance, just a bunch of like chop stuff, as you can see. And then I do some very simple geometry, some cosine stuff that I learned in like middle school or high school, and I never had to use until now. And now, after receiving all of that data, I'm able to get here X and Y coordinates. And those are these coordinates that you can see here. And as I move these 2 controllers, I get in real time a reflection on that being rendered here in TouchDesigner. And this is what later I'm using for this particular piece that I'm going to be showing. But the idea is that you can use this for like many different applications. You can have many of these controllers. In this case, this is running a particle system. So here you have these 2 nodes where I have on the top the particles, on the bottom a visualization of the devices in real time. And with this all put together, and later with some post-processing, I built this piece that I called greater than 2, kind of showcasing a little bit some human connections that it was kind of inspired by the fact of like being far away from my home country of Chile. And yeah, here you can see like a demo that we recorded actually yesterday with Torin. And yeah, I just let it play so you can see how this works. As you see, it reacts decently well to when I put them together, close together, when I separate them. And in this case, it's a simple particle system, I guess, but you could explore this with many different applications. And yeah, I don't think there's like a hard limit to how many of these devices you can have connected on the same, I guess, network. So theoretically, if you didn't have a limit of resources, you can buy like, I don't know, dozens, maybe more, and build like a pretty way more complex system. Also, as I showed, I only have 2 anchors. That limits me to be able to only get position in like a 2D plane. With a third one, I could get 3-dimensional data and 3-dimensional position, but I chose to use the third one as another tag. And yeah, here you can just see a little bit of the post-processing that is making this look a little bit prettier. It's nothing crazy. I have a feedback loop, and then I'm compositing both the particles with this initial circles visualization with like a very low transparency. Then some lookup with to get some nice color palettes, some bloom that always makes everything looks pretty. And yeah, then sometimes I like to add some noise on top just to make it a little bit more kind of like analog looking. I don't know if it actually accomplishes that, but I think it looks nice. And yeah, so this is something that I've been working recently. I'm trying to explore different ways of applying this. I have a few ideas, but if any of you guys also have ideas or ways that you think we could apply this technology for, please reach out, let's talk, I would love that. And yeah, this is just like a final, oh, it kind of froze, I think. But yeah, that's basically it. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah. Yeah, so I am both on the Arduino code part. I am basically averaging. I think it's like I'm averaging like around like 20 samples onto one, just to make it more stable. I also on the final visualization, I'm using a lag chop to make it a little bit more smooth. But it's pretty stable, especially when you do this basically like an averaging like this, because you don't really need to have like hundreds of like samples per frame, so it's okay to average a lot of them, and then you get a pretty good result like this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess another advantage that I didn't mention is that it works without having direct line of sight, which I think is like an advantage when you don't want or can use something like a regular camera running like the media pipe, for example, because this works even if you're not in front of each other. If there's obstacles between the different tags, it's still gonna work. It's still gonna track the location. So I feel like that can also give other affordances. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And with this one, so that does depend a lot on like what specific device you're using. The ones that I'm using, from what I tested, it's like around like 30 meters, which yeah, I think it's pretty good. It also depends on like where you are. If you're indoors, if there's like more obstacles, that makes the signal kind of like bounce more and makes it a little bit less basically reliable. But in like an outdoor space where there's no obstacles, it's pretty good distance. Oh, I don't think I can give you a number, mostly because everything is running on my small old MacBook Air M1. So there's like a latency that's added because the computer is struggling. But I mean, later I have it running there. Actually, I forgot to say that. I set it up outside. So later, if people want to ask me more questions or play around with it, please come and we can see how it works in real time. I mean, I found that it does work slightly faster, probably in like a neglectable way, that if I do everything on the C++ code before sending that to TouchDesigner, it probably doesn't make like a big difference, especially for this kind of like use case. But if you wanted to have like a very, very low latency, then I guess that would matter. Yeah. Thank you.
It was super fun. I actually got the opportunity to have Matías in my TouchDesigner class at Parsons, and I remember seeing like an early prototype of this where it was like split between, you had like 2 different monitors. You were like live broadcasting visuals from TouchDesigner to 2 separate displays and getting the position, and then as you'd overlap them, the particle system would like interact between the 2 live displays. And it's been super fun to see where it's progressed from here. So definitely check it out. It's going to be outside here in a little bit. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and have a AV set from Georgios. So thank you. Probably in like a little after 9:30 roughly.